A very good morning to all the students of class 9. Today I am going to teach you chapter 5, The Happy Prince. It is from the book Moments. See, and this story is been written by Oscar Wilde. See, this story is about a prince, and when the prince was alive, he was very happy. And after his death, a big statue of his was erected on a pedestal, and from there the statue of prince could see the entire city, and at that time he saw the miseries of the people. He also saw the poor people, the homeless, and the starvation and the hunger. And by seeing all this thing, the prince was sad to see all these miseries, sadness of the people. So in this chapter we will study the story of this prince. Chapter 5, The Happy Prince. High above the city, on a tall column, stood the statue of the Happy Prince. He was gilded all over with thin leaves of fine gold. For eyes, he had two bright sapphires and a large red ruby globed on his sword hilt. See what is said over here, the statue of prince that stood on a high platform, and it was overlooking the city. And the prince was called a happy prince because when he was alive, he always remained very happy. And upon his death, a big statue of his was erected in the center of the city in his remembrance. And the statue of this happy prince was covered with a thin layer of gold, and instead of his eyeballs there were two bright shining sapphire stones, and in the handle of the sword a bright ruby stone was placed. Hilt means a handle of a weapon or a tool, especially a sword. One night there flew over the city a little swallow. His friends had gone away to Egypt 6 weeks before. Swallow is a tiny bird, but he had stayed behind. Then he decided to go to Egypt too. See what is said here, the swallow is a tiny bird, and although it is not a human being, still the writer is referring it to as he and his. And he says that all the friends of his swallow had flown away to Egypt 6 weeks ago, and this bird did not go with them. But what happened? But later it thought of going to Egypt with his friends. So it was on its way to Egypt. All day long he flew, and at night time he arrived at the city. Where shall I put up? Put up means where to leave for the night. He said, I hope the town has made preparation. So this bird kept on flying on the way to Egypt, and what happened at night? He reached the city, and the city of the happy prince. It wanted to stay somewhere for a night. So what he thought that upon where to stay at night. So bird says that hopefully the city has might have made some arrangement for his stay. So obviously the bird does not mean what it is saying. We can say that probably the bird is being humorous. Then he saw the statue on the tall column. I will put up there, he cried. It is a fine position with plenty of fresh air. So he alighted, means he descended, just between the feet of the happy prince. See now what happened when this tiny bird, when he saw this huge statue of happy prince, so he thought of staying over there. So this bird thought it was a good place to spend the night over there, and there was a shelter, a lot of fresh air also moving. So the birds came and alighted, and it stopped and sat in between the feet of the statue of this happy prince. I have a golden bedroom, he said softly to himself as he looked round, and he prepared to go to sleep. But just as he was putting his head under his wings, a large drop of water fell on him. What a curious thing, he cried. There is not a single cloud in the sky. The stars are quite clear and bright, and yet it is raining. Then another drop fell. See what happened when the bird, when he was sad, when he sat in between the feet of this happy prince, it was surrounded with gold. So it thought that it had a bedroom made up of gold. Why? Because it was being surrounded by gold all around. As it was about to sleep, what happened at that moment? It was putting its head under the wings. Suddenly, what happened? A large drop of water that fell onto it, and the bird was surprised. Why? Because all of a sudden a drop of water fell on it, and it thought that it's raining nor it's a rainy season also. So how come this drop of water came? And the swallow bird could not believe this. Why? Because the sky was not cloudy, it was clear, and the stars were shining. Just then another drop of water fell onto it. What is the use of a statue if it cannot keep the rain off? He said, I must look for a good chimney pot, and he determined to fly away. See, here the swallow bird, now what he thought that the statue was useless because it was not able to protect it from rain also. So he thought he should not sleep under the statue, and he thought that it would be better if it would take shelter in a chimney of a house, and thought to move away from there. Why? Because the statue was not able to protect from rain. But before he had opened his wings, a third drop fell, and he looked up and saw. Ah, what did he see? Before the bird fly away, what the third drop, while he was moving to fly, at that moment only, a third drop of water that fell on him, and it looked up. What did he see? See, let us see what did he see. The eyes of the happy prince were filled with tears and were running down his golden cheeks. His face was so beautiful in the moonlight that the little swallow was filled with pity. Who are you? He said. I am the happy prince. See, as soon as when the bird looked up, he saw that the eyes of the happy prince statue was filled with tears, and these drops of water were the tears drop that were falling off the statue of this golden checker. And when this bird looked at a happy prince face, it was looking very beautiful in the moonlight also, and the little bird's heart that filled with pity for weeping statue. It asked the statue that who it was, and the statue replied, he said that it was the happy prince. Why are you weeping then? Asked the swallow. You have quite drenched me, means soaked with water. See, the swallow thought what this bird thought, that the statue was of the happy prince, and but it was crying. And the bird asked the statue why it was crying. It added that it had soaked with its tears. When I was alive and had a human heart, answered the statue, I did not know what tears were, for I lived in the palace where sorrow is not allowed to enter. My courtiers called me the happy prince, and the happy indeed I was. So I lived and so I died. And now that I am dead, they have set me up here so high that I can see the ugliness and all the miseries of my city, and though my heart is made of lead, yet I cannot choose but weep. See what in this story, what the happy prince now he's saying, he's saying his story to the bird. And the happy prince said that when he was alive, he had a human heart. Human heart means the heart with bits, it's alive, and at the time he was not aware what tears were and what sorrow was. So he lived in a palace where there was happiness all around, and all the people who were, yeah, who used to live with him in the court, used to call him happy prince. Why? Because he was always happy all the time, and he had not seen sorrow at all. And now he said that he lived happily and died in happiness only. When he had a human heart, he never cried. He was He was not aware what tears were because he had seen happiness only, and he never faced any sorrow in his life. And now, when he was dead, they have made a big statue on a pedestal that he could see the whole city and all the ugliness of the city. He could also see that there were so many people living in misery. There was a lack of money, food, hunger, they were homeless also. And now, when the statue's heart was made of lead a metal, that is, although it did not have any feelings. And then also, when it saw all this sadness, so it was very sad, so it became sad and wept. What, is he not solid gold? Said the swallow to himself. He was too polite to make any personal remark. See, when the happy prince was telling all his story, the swallow was thinking about something else in his mind, and the bird wondered that the statue of the prince was not what he wondered that it was not made up of solid gold, and it was surprised also, and he thought that from outside the statue was covered with gold, but as it said that the heart was made of lead and not of gold, so it realized that it was hollow and was not made of solid gold. See, it also saw that the statue was very sad and he was crying, and because of this, made any personal remark. And it did not comment anything about the statue. Why? Because it was giving the value to the statue's feeling. Far away, continued the statue in a low musical voice. Far away in a little street there is a poor house. One of the windows is open, and through it I can see a woman sitting at the table. Her face is thin and worn, and she has coarse red hands, all pricked by the needle, for she is seamstress. Coarse means rough, and seamstress means a woman who makes a living by sewing. See, the statue now, he continued his story, and it spoke it very musical voice, and that was far away that he can see a house of a poor woman, and the window of that house was open, so he can see through that window. So a woman was sitting near the table, and her face was very thin, and she was very tired also, and her hands were rough and they had become red. Why? Because they had been pricked by needle. Means that the woman was a seamstress. She was she was sewing something. She is embroidering flowers on a satin gown for the loveliest of the queen's maid of honor to wear at the next court ball. In a bed in the corner of the room, her little boy is lying ill. He has a fever and is asking his mother to give him oranges. His mother has nothing to give him but river water, so he is crying. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not bring her the ruby out of my sword hilt? Hilt means sword, hilt is the handle of the sword. My feet are fastened to this pedestal, means a raised platform pedestal is a, and I cannot move. See what he says, the woman was embroidering flowers on a gown of the queen's maid who would walk along the queen during the court ball. And the statue also said that the lady who was embroidering the gown had a little child, and that child was not feeling well, he was ill, so he was suffering from fever, and he was asking his mama to give some oranges, but his mother was very poor, so she could not afford to give him oranges, and instead of oranges she could only give him water, that also river water. That is why the little boy was crying. And so the happy prince statue requested the swallow to take out the ruby stone from the handle of its sword, and to give that to that lady. And it also said that its feet were fastened to platform. See, his feet were fastened to the platform, so because of which it could not move. I hope you all have understood till here. Thank you.